Okay, so Bez Hashem, we are continuing in Hilchot Netilat Yedayim, and this is in the Tzurba Rabbanon Netilat Yedayim L'Suda Halacha Shir Bet. We're on page 95. Okay, we're on page 95. We are starting now with the appearance of the water. So last week we spoke about Koach Gavra, right? A person has to pour it. We talked about it needing to come from a keli. Right? We talked about these important halachot. Today we're going to talk about the water itself, like the color of the water, the quality of the water doesn't make a difference. So we start off with a Mishnah in Masechet Yedayim, source number 1 on page 95, and it says as follows: if dye, gum, or calcanthum, some sort of blue vitriol, falls into the water and its appearance has changed, minshtanu marehen pesulin, the water becomes invalid. So the Mishnah in Masechet Yedayim says, if something falls into the water and changes the color of the water is now pasul for Netilat Yedayim. Okay? So that's how we have the Mishnah. Now we're going to have the Ra'ah. The Ra'ah is Rabbi Aharon Halevi. He lives in Spain, right? He's in the year he was born around 1235, so he's after the Rambam. He's still a Rishon, and he says over here, the Tama Netilat Yedayim be'inyan mayim shelo nishtanu tzurotan. Water that's used for Netilat Yedayim has to be water that wasn't changed. Why? Dumya dekudesh yadayim v'reglayim min hakior. Because when we already learned 2 weeks ago that we compare the Netilat Yedayim somewhat to the way the Kohanim washed their hands by the kior. Right? We compared it to the paraduma water. We compared it to the kior water. There were a lot of comparisons of waters. So he says, when it comes to the Kiddush Yadayim v'reglayim min hakior, when the Kohanim would wash their hands including the kior, the pasuk by the kior, it says, you should put in the kior mayim, and Aaron and his children should wash his hands. They should wash with water. What do you mean wash with water? I already know water. Water, you told me you put it inside. That's what they're going to wash with. So why are you saying water a second time? So the Ra'ah says, therefore, you're teaching us it has to still be mayim when they're using it. It cannot have changed. So the source, the Mishnah says that you put something and it changes the color of the water, the appearance of the water, it's puzzle. The source for that is based on these psukim. The Ra'ah says, the pasuk that says mayim twice when it talks about kior, telling us you put in water into the kior, and it's water that you use, and not something else. Okay? The Rambam writes as follows. Rambam in source number 3 on page 96. Mayim shenishtanu maraitan, right? So water that did change its appearance, bein b'kelim, bein b'karkaol, whether you had it in a vessel and you changed it there, or it was changed while you had it changed in the ground. Let's say you were storing it in a well or in a pit and you changed it in there. It doesn't make a difference. Bein machma davar shenafal l'tochan, whether because you put something in it, bein machma mekuman, or whether it was situated or where it was, it had ability for things to fall into it. Hare elu pesulin. All these are going to become pasul. Right. So we'll have to see. We have to see how you classify that. Is it that the water changing on its own, or is that something falling inside? We know now it's falling something inside, but we'll have to see. Let's give it a moment. V'chein im nitgalu gilui ha'asur otan mishteya nefsalu l'tilat yadayim. So the Rambam then says this is another halacha we have. Whether this halacha applies today, probably doesn't. But in the olden days, if you left water out, you weren't allowed to drink it because you were scared that a snake would come and put its venom in the snake in the water, and as such, it would become dangerous to drink. You couldn't even use it to wash up because the washing could be dangerous from the venom. So the Rambam says if you had such a water that the venom of the snake went in, you wouldn't be able to wash with it either. So the main thing from the Rambam is he says to change its color, doesn't matter how it changed, whether you change it in a vessel, whether you change it in the ground, whether it changed because something fell in, or because you left it somewhere and something fell in, right? Whether you put it in or something fell in on its own, the Rambam says all that is possible. So the Shulchan Aruch adds to the Rambam. So the Rambam says something put inside. Shulchan Aruch adds and says, "Ma'im shenishanu merein bein machmat atzman." Even if it happened on its own, even if the water changed on its own, bein machmat davar shenaful letochan, or if something fell in it, bein machmat mekomam, whether it's in its place, what you put in a certain place, pisulim, they're all possible. So halacha l'maisa, the Shulchan Aruch says, even if it changed on its own, it's still possible, especially if you put something in it, it's possible. And even if you put it in a place that it would become changed, it would also become possible. So that's what we have in the Shulchan Aruch. The Mishnah Berurah says a little bit different. Mishnah Berurah says, Machmat Atzman, when it's changed by itself, what's the case it changed by itself? What's this case it changed by itself? So he says, Kigon, Sha'amad Keli's man rab. It stayed in a keli a long time. Mishnah says you leave it in a keli a long time outside, and it turns green by itself. Now, how does this actually happen? It doesn't really happen. It would change with bacteria. Bacteria falls inside, mosquitoes fall inside. So there's such thing as changes on its own. That's what the Piskei Teshuvot is going to talk about in a minute. But the Mishnah Berurah says, I've seen you leave the water out and it can change to green. The Mechaber, so the Shulchan Aruch, Yosef Karo, he took it from the Torah. The Rambam we read never talked about itself. The Rambam said something falls in, something goes in, and it changes it. Then it becomes only that happens because of something else, not because of itself. And he says many Achronim agree with the Rambam and argue with the Shulchan Aruch, and therefore, if it changed on its own, Mishnah Berurah wants to say it is mutter to use that water. Okay.
You don't see it.
So that's the Piskei Teshuvot. That's going to be in 2 minutes. That's going to be the Piskei Teshuvot. Piskei Teshuvot is going to say, how are you to ascertain whether something fell in or not? If it changed, it may have something fell in. You just don't see it. You just don't know. We're not experts. Truth is, in the olden days, you have to remember this. In the olden days, they used to think that like worms would come from a food. Like either food and food spoils, the worm doesn't come out from the food. There's stuff out there that there's the eggs of the worms that are there, right? That's one of the reasons. For example, here's a practical halacha to this deal with rice. You store rice or you store flour, right? What happens is you have to check it. Why? Because it might be worm, it might be bugs. Where's the bugs coming from? But the flour package all of a sudden just worms show up? No, there were the eggs of the worms already there, or it was already there. Okay, but they don't grow and come out until certain conditions are met. It's there for a very long time. It's damp, it's wet, and stuff like that, right? So, impossibly in their times, they didn't have that science to show that there are actually eggs that grow these worms. They understood that you had a rotten food and then worms would just show up, and it's like magic. Right, you're microscopic, so you couldn't see it, but it's actually there. So that's what the Piskei Teshuvah. But let's get before we get to the Piskei Teshuvah, let's see the Ben Ish Chai. The Ben Ish Chai says, Netilat Yedayim dima oto chazal letaharat mechatat. He says Netilat Yedayim is like parah aduma. Okay, again, that's something we saw 2 weeks ago. That Yedayim could be somewhat compared to parah aduma. Kiddush Yedayim v'reglayim and a kir, and also like washing your hands from the kior. That's the ra'ah. That's what we saw. The shinu marib possible hand, and when it changes its color, the water changes color, it is possible. And you have to be very careful, like the way I'm going to explain. Then he writes, even if it changed because of itself, the Mishnah Ben Ish Chai says that even if it changed on its own, right? Even if it's changed on its own, it's possible. So he seems to be saying like the Shulchan Aruch, not like the Mishnah Berurah. So he says after the Demaran, the Reyos Akara, Shivkanu that we accepted Hirotav, Pasek the Psulin. This is the way we're going to Paskin. Miu, but then he writes, Im ein loy mayim achem, v'efshar loy lahavi mayim achem, yitol mehem beloy yivarach b'shem malchut ela yiharher shehu malchut bilvivo. So the Mishnah Ben Ish Chai says we have to hold of the Shulchan Aruch, and water that was changing its appearance even on its own, it is possible. If you have no other water, you could use that water, but don't make a bracha. Okay? Because there are achronim that say this water is kosher, so you can use it, but you can't make a bracha on that. Now comes the Piskei Tshuvot that I mentioned. There are many poskim that say lahachmer. To be very careful with this, like the Shulchan Aruch, and not be like the Mishnah Berurah and say water that changed on its own, it's okay. Kestimot the Shulchan Aruch, like the Stam the Shulchan Aruch, the Gamba Mayim Shenashtanu, Marehein Machmat Atzmon, Ein Litzel Yedayim. The oid, and this is where this is the main point. The oid, Kilo Oila Mayim Shemishtanim Marehem Liar Coat, the green. Yesh Siva Chitzonio. There's some sort of outside reason. Machmat Chom Hashemesh or Atimot Ta'aver. There's something there. It's the sun. It is the staleness of the air. And who is us to tell if it changed because of itself or it changes some outside factor? Therefore, you should be machmer in all the cases, especially if the water is foul. So the Piskei Tshuvot has this idea. Where do you know it came from? It changed color. Possible from an outside source. Therefore, even if you wanted to say Machmat Atzman, if it changed on its own, it's okay. You don't know how it changed. So therefore, you have to be Machmer in it. So what do we hold the So we have a Mishnah Berurah on the one hand that says many Achronim argue the Shulchan Aruch and said it's okay to use water that changed on its own. And on the other side, we have the Shulchan Aruch, we have the Ben Ish Chai, and we have the Piskei Tshuvot. So for us, we like to look at the Yalkut Yosef in the English edition. We're looking at page 151, Halacha 1. This says Mayim Rishonim. Right, we're dealing with Mayim Rishonim right now. So page 151. Let's take one step at a time. Okay. And he says as follows. All right. If water has the appearance of some other liquid, whether because of some additive or because of its location or due to some natural cause, right? Right. So we hold like the Shulchan Aruch, and we hold that if water has changed appearance even on its own, it is possible. Can't use it. So it has to be the color of the water. So we're going to deal with that. We're going to deal with that. Hold on. Sometimes you turn on the sink, it comes out dirty water. Sometimes you have dirty water. Let's take a look. Where are we holding? We're holding now page 98, source 8. So the Mishnah Berurah says, due to something that fell in, something fell in, such as ink or dyes and colors, even if the coloring agent did not dissolve in it yet, meaning you put in something to change the color, but it didn't change color yet, right? But by soaking in its color change, it's still possible. This is also the case if it changed due to smoke or anything else. Then he writes, it's not considered a change of appearance if it's due to dirt or mud that got mixed into it. Why? So we're going to see later in Shulchan Aruch that he says the mishum the derech gidul hamayim who came to yot me'urav ve'offer v'tit. It's the derech of water to be found with mud and dirt. You go to a natural body of water, it's going to be sand, dirt, whatever pebbles are going to be in it. That's the way you find water in the natural bodies of water. So therefore, then he says, if you leave it, it's going to become clear. If you leave it alone, it usually settles. Right? If you have mud inside, you let it sit, it's going to settle. So that's what the Mishnah Berurah says. He brings here from the in the Tzurba, source 9, he brings from the Hebrew Yalkut Yosef, that says as follows: water whose color has turned white, looking cloudy or foggy, and after a few moments the cloud disappears and the water is clear. A lot of water is a lot of sink. Take this thing, fill up the cup. You see, when you turn it, it's cloudy at first, right? And then you leave it, it clears up. It's used. It's mutter to use it. Even if they're standing, even when it's still not cleared, even when it's still white, you can still use it because eventually it's going to clear up. So this is the normal water, and you don't have to wait for it to clear up. He says, this is also the case. The Maim shel Baris, Baris, that they have inside of it mixed sand, brown sand in it, and after some time it settles down. The water is fit for Netilat Yedayim. So if you have dirty water that comes out of the faucet, but it's going to clear up. If it's going to clear up, okay, so I'm telling you, if it's going to clear up, it is kosher. If it's going to remain brown, then it's not going to be kosher. Then it changed due to something.
That's bad type.
I know, that's what I'm saying. Then it changed due to something. Some sort of outside thing changed it.
Like, can use any water now.
If you're having brown water coming out,
because of an old pipe.
right? How did the water turn brown? What caused it to be? What in the old pipe caused it to get brown? Right. What did your old pipes do to it? There's something in the old pipe that changed the color. The rust changed the color. So then you change the color, and it's not clearing up. Because the Mishnah said the little sipe in the end it's going to clear up. Here it's not clearing up. So you change the appearance, right? And the Yahweh say the same thing. It says it has to settle down. It has to be able to settle down. So if you have sand, he says, brown sand mixed into it after a few minutes, and it's going to become clear, then you can use it. If it's not going to become clear, then you can't use it. That's what he says. So I put here in the English, he writes as follows: muddy water is still fit for the mitzvah of Netilat Yedayim, even if it's not transparent. Muddy water, not rusted water, muddy water, right? Because it's the natural color of water, since many bodies of water is muddy. So if you found a pond that's a muddy pond, you can use it. But he writes, if it's not potable, you can't put it in a pot and light a fire underneath and cook it and use it, and even a dog would not drink it, then it's going to be unfit for Netilat Yedayim. Even muddy water, which is natural, is only natural to the sense that a dog would still drink it. It's potable. You're able to take it, put it in a pot, and light it on the fire, and cook it up. But if not that, then that even muddy water, even though it's in a natural state, you find it in a natural pond, a natural river. If it's too muddy, the dog can't drink it, and you can't use it. Okay? He says over here, he said the Ben Ish Chai said that if water that changed on its own, you can use it. If you have no other water, you have to follow the Shulchan Aruch otherwise, right? So this the Halacha Bro says the same thing. We follow Shulchan Aruch. We don't go with the Mishnah Berurah. He says over here from Piskei Teshuvot, he adds, sometimes at the sink you have a colorful soap, and the soap, dishwashing soap, falls into the cup, and now you fill up the cup, and the cup changed somewhat of a color because of the color of the soap. If it happens that the color of the soap changes, the color of the water changes due to the color of the liquid soap, then that would be possible to use. Mishnah Berurah said if it changed on its own, Machmas Atzman, then it would be kosher, because many Acharonim argue with the Shulchan Aruch. We said the Shulchan Aruch said even if it changed on its own, it's still possible. That was the Shulchan Aruch. That was the Ben Ish Chai. That was the Piskei Teshuvot somewhat, and that is the Yalkut Yosef's psak as well.
What about the rainwater?
What about rainwater?
It's okay to use? It's like a puddle, huh?
What do you mean? It's in a puddle, and now what?
It's puddle, and I want to use to wash my hands or
and
something.
And you're taking it
like
in a
that.
cup?
Yeah, per se,
And you
yeah.
have it in a cup. Why not?
Yeah, it gathers somewhere. No, I'm just asking. I don't know.
Yeah,
There's not.
I don't
Yeah,
see why
it's okay.
not.
Okay.
As long as you're putting it in a cup and it's right for a caliph to drink, it's not dirty water. It's just whatever. It's not disgusting water. It's from the floor. You would. All your water is rainwater in the end of the day, right? What is it? Okay. The Chazon Ish he adds over here in the English Yaakov Yosef says if there are pebbles, seeds, or nutshells in the water, they're still going to remain kosher because they don't dissolve like a dye, right? If you put in a coloring agent, it's going to dissolve and the whole water is going to change. But if you have pebbles, seeds, or nutshells, it's just in there and it's not changing the color. So then it would be okay.
This water that you have in front of you right now, that's not allowed.
Tea,
No sugar inside.
And drink it, local drink.
we have to deal with tea. Tea is different. Tea is different. Tea is different. We're going to see that wine, fruit juice, we're not going to really tap into it, but we'll look at tea for a moment because you asked it. But we're going to that's already the next right. That's what's right next. Okay. So the Tzurba skips a whole topic in the Gemara that deals with washing with wine, washing your hands with fruit juices and stuff like that. The Tzurba skips to washing your hands with soda. Okay, specifically either seltzer or lemon lime soda like Sprite, Fresca, one of these clear sodas. Okay, so he goes to the Or L'Tzion, he brings the Or L'Tzion for this, and he says, "Misha ein loy mayim, someone who doesn't have water, or shaili tol yadav l'suda b'mei soda, he can use soda, v'af b'mitz memutach l'lo tzava, as long as even if it's sweet, as long as it's clear, v'yivarach on the tilazo, and to say a bracha of Netilat Yedayim on such a soda.
The carbonated stuff is healthy. No, it's gonna clean out. It's a good cleaning
Yes,
agent. No,
but what he's saying is not considered a change, and not considered enough of a change of appearance. We know bubbles is not considered a change, right? That's probably why you can make bubbles on Shabbos. Right? You can make carbonated drinks on Shabbos. Bubbles is not a change in the appearance of the water, so it'd be permissible to use. Now, what he's really skipping here is a whole in the Gemara about using wine and stuff like that. We're not going to get into the whole thing because the Tzurba didn't get into it, but I just want to touch on it briefly. So on page 172 in the English, by the way, we have an English Yaakov Joseph here in Barachot if you want to follow inside. But hold on. He says as follows. I'm going to read the Halacha 35 here on page 172 in the Yaakov Yosef English edition. If someone has any other choice, he should avoid performing Netilat Yedayim with wine. If no water is available, however, he may use wine. In fact, he may use any natural fruit juice or beer in such a case. For Netilat Yedayim. And there is a basis to recite the bracha as well. Okay, in the footnotes here, it's like a 2.5 page footnote here, which I'm not going to go through, but he goes through the whole Indian of the different opinions of the Shulchan Aruch, the Gemara, and back and forth. Let's see soft drinks. If any of the above beverages are available, one should use it rather than use a colored soft drink as cola. If cola is the only beverage, so Coca-Cola, one may use it, but not recite the bracha. So here, Coca-Cola is sitting right in front of us. If you have no other water, you can wash your hands with Coca-Cola, but you can't say the bracha on Netilat Yedayim because it changed too much. It's black already. All right, you can say, I believe it, fine. But when using a transparent soft drink, such as club soda, that is seltzer, or lemon lime soda, Sprite, Fresca, separate sodas, then Yochaf the Varach on the Tilato. You'll be able to say the bracha on the Netilat Yedayim. Okay, so that's the kitzur. What about teas? Is anything about teas here? Or Tzion said same thing. He said about the lemon lime or soda, it would be fine to use and say the bracha on it. Okay. Beer, coffee, tea, and juice. Here in the footnote, he brings it down. Let's see what he says here. Can I compare that first? He says it's not similar to fruit juices here because fruit juices is a natural color, but the teas and stuff, you're changing it by putting something in it.
Would be allowed, you think?
According to this, all soft drinks that are water with added flavorings and colors are disqualified. So halacha brura, right? So David Yosef. According to this opinion, tea and coffee are also possible to use. Someone that has nothing else to use, he may use them, but not recite the bracha. And if someone used this and then regular water came up later in the suda, he has to go and use that other water. But according to halacha brura, tea is not good to use for Netilat Yedayim because you change its color. It's not a natural color. Whereas a fruit juice, right? You take orange juice, 100% orange juice, right? Straight from the source. There's an opinion that allows you to use it. You can even say a bracha on it. All right, told you it's going to be some interesting stuff today. I'm going to come out with some ideas. All right, let's move on. What about hot water? Okay, can I use hot water for Netilat Yedayim? Now we're talking hot. We're talking Yad Soledadbo, right? This is a hot water that usually your hand recoils from the heat of the water.
Why am I doing this every time? To clean my hands or to purify my hands?
Purify your hands. Purify your hands from a rabbinic tumah that they put on the hands. Right. Because you're going to say that sodas and stuff like that to make my hands all sticky. It's not clean. Right. Okay. It's not to clean, it's to purify. You're right. Okay.
Amen.
Thanks. Go ahead. Okay, everybody. Let's look at hot water. Yad Soledadbo. Can I use hot water for Netilat Yedayim? Hot is hot. Why not?
Not use it.
You can't use it.
He's not pouring it. He's just looking.
You ever? Okay, I don't know, but I know some of my elders. They used to take a hot shower, like really hot. The whole place. I don't even know how they went in such hot water. It's like boiling hot. Some people apparently like to go into such hot water. Some people can handle it. So Yad Soledadbo. Now usually if it's so hot you would recoil, but you could put your hand in it. You know, it's not gonna melt your skin off.
Maybe it's Erev Shabbat. It has this results. I think it cleanses. So it's good to wash yourself hot water.
Oh, very hot water, really?
The feet. I think some kind of a
I didn't know that.
For
Okay,
Shabbat, it removes the tuma noga. I think something like that.
Interesting. Okay.
Why I need to burn my hand? I can do it against the wood or against my clothes or something.
That doesn't work for Suda.
Yeah.
Against the wood doesn't work for Suda. No. I just sit at the table. Yeah, that's the clean. That's the clean. If you touch something on your body and you're learning or something like that, you're davening, then you can rub it off on that. But for Suda, you have to wash. Okay. Okay, so he brings Masechus Chulin, the Gemara. The Gemara says, "My Rishonim." Okay, first waters. Notlin ben becham and ben betzonin. You can wash either with hot water or with cold water. Achronim. When it comes with last waters, ain't no tlin. You don't wash ela betzonin. You only wash with cold. You don't wash with hot water. Because hot water mefafin et hayadayim ve'ein ma'avirin et hazumah. Because hot water softens the hand and doesn't remove the dirt. Okay. Okay. So he says over here, softens the hand, doesn't remove them. Okay, we'll get into Hilchot and Ma'amar Chonim later, but it has to do with the opening and closing of the pores, I believe. Right. So when you use hot water, your skin pores open. Okay. And when you use cold water, your skin pores close. So if you want to take off dirt, you're not using a soap. Hot water will not take off the dirt. It's going to put the dirt in you. Okay, that's what the Gemara seems to be saying. But if you use cold water, you're closing the pores so this dirt can't go into you. It has no choice but to come off. I always thought hot water was good to clean. I always get to clean if you're using an agent, a baking soda or some soap or something like that in order to clean. What? Bleach. This guy wants to use bleach on his hand. Okay. Ma'am Rishonim. Okay, that's one opinion. No, that's the Gemara. Okay, then what does this happen? The Gemara says further. Ma'am Rishonim noiten bein becham bein mitzoinen. Amar Yitzchak bar Yosef Amar ben Yanai lo yishanu elo she'ein hayat soledad bohem. Oh, when it said in Ma'amar Shonim you can use hot water, that was talking about when it's not Yad Soledet. She'ein hayad soledet behen, aval hayad soledet behen, ain't no tlum behen. If it's too hot, then you can't use it. Okay, so that's one. The Ika Demit Seifa, and those who teach as follows: Achronim may not tlin elo b'tzonin aval b'cham and light. When it comes to Achronim, you can only use cold. You cannot use hot. Amar v'tzimar yosem Rabbi Yanai lo shanu elo shehayad soledet behen, aval ein hayad soledet behen, no tlin. That's only by Ma'amar Chronim. You can't use Yad Soledet water. But if it's not Yad Soledet, you could use Meklal the Rishon. That means the first waters, Aval Bisha Yad Soledet and Mutter. That means in Ma'amar Rishonim, that if it's so hot that your hand will recoil, it's still Mutter. So how do exactly you learn the Gemara? That's the question. The question is, do we say Ma'amar Rishonim could be extremely hot and you can use it and that's fine? Or you learn the Gemara that says no, even Ma'amar Rishonim, it has to be less than extremely hot. That your hand should be lukewarm. It shouldn't be that your hand will recoil from the hotness.
He said,
Which? So there's two girsas. One girsa wants to say that you cannot use Yad Soledet water. But there's another girsa that says you can't use Yad Soledet. That's by Ma'amar Chronim. And by Ma'amar Rishonim, you could use Yad Soledet water. That's the question. Which one now do we paskin like? What? There's two girsot. The Ika the Mitna law Seifa. There's some who learn it on the Seifa. Okay, so how you learn the Yad Soledet? So there's a statement that says Yad Soledet, you can't use. Not Yad Soledet, you could use. When do they say that? Did they say that on Ma'amar Chronim, or did they say that on the Ma'amar Rishonim? That's the way the Gemara is bringing. So two years old, how you learn. Okay, now, Rashi, he brings it in the beige box over there. He writes, Rashi wants to say, I think he's saying it's from Rashi, that the reason for this ruling would be that such hot water is considered undrinkable at this temperature. Remember we said if the water was too dirty, that you can't drink it, it's not going to be able to use, right? It's not drinkable, even the dog can't drink it. They're saying too hot water, no one could drink it. Therefore, it's not usable. That's one reason to say it's not good. According to the second opinion, no, it's good for Ma'amar Rishonim. And he wants to say here that the heat of the water opens the pores and the hand causes the unwanted grime to be absorbed. The water does not remove grime, but the first water you're not using to remove the dirt. Okay, so what halacha? What do we do? Which girsa in the Gemara do we hold like? So the Bet Yosef writes, "V'chatru harosh v'harashba v'hamordechai the halacha kilishna batra." That the halacha is like the second girsa that says what? You could use burning hot water for Netilat Yedayim. You could use v'chei near medivrei harif, and so is seen from the Rif v'harambam. And this is what we hold of. But the like is smag, it's not like the smag, the smack, not like the smack. That say that the paskin like the first. So we have the Rashba, we have big hitters over here. Yeah, you have the Rashba, the Rush, you have the Rif, the Rambam. These are the huge ones, and this is what we go with. So the Shulchan Aruch, that was the Bet Yosef. So there's a car right in the Shulchan Aruch. Water heated by fire could be used for Netilat Yedayim. Even if it's so hot that your hand will recoil from it. So you're saying the Matthias, if it's so hot, how am I leaving my hand under it, right?
If you can recoil it, I didn't never use the water. Water never touched me. I'm here, I'm water.
Right. So you're good. So it's going to be brought down. That's going to be an issue why not to use it. Because so we're talking about people who could tolerate such hot water. People could tolerate such hot water. Let's see the Mishnah Berurah, who brings a few achronim who don't agree with the Shulchan Aruch. He writes as follows: Yesh machmirin v'yatzu led behem b'chas v'achronim div ein loy mayim acherim ein lahachmir b'zeh. If we want to have, so he writes, there's some say to be mach. Remember, right? If one does not have other water, then you don't have to be strict. The hikr kedat a shulchan aruch. The hikr is like the shulchan aruch. For shirin ain't isur klal lekuli alma. For shirin is lukewarm water, and it's not usur according to anyone. The feel im hayu chamim b'tchila v'nitztananu v'nasu poshrin gam ken mutar. He says the best, leave it to cool down. Give it a minute to cool down, and then use it. If you only have this water that's very hot, wait a little bit. Should cool down a little bit. And then it's going to be permissible according to everyone. So yeah, Shulchan Aruch says, and Ikar Adin, that's the halacha. You could use very hot water. But the best thing to do, because some argue with that, so the best thing to do is to let it sit and cool down, and then use it. Yalkut Yosef, Hebrew edition, brought in the Tzurba in source 15, says, Mayim chamim shit chamamu ha'idei ha'esh, hot water that you heat it on the fire. Mutter litol mehem Netilat Yedayim. You could use it for Netilat Yedayim. V'nachon sheyimtin ad shehamayim yihu pushrin. You should wait. The right way to do it is to wait for it to become a little bit cooler. Especially, shekasha, it's hard. Because it's hard to wash your hands under boiling water. Right? Like you were saying from the start. I'm scared to leave my hand under the water. So I'm not really leaving it there. So he says it's hard to do that. Therefore, don't do it that way. All right, let it cool off. In the English edition of the Yalkut Yosef on page 167, looking at halacha 24, he writes the same thing. Permissible to use hot water for Netilat Yedayim, even if it's scalding hot. The best ever is to use it at room temperature. He writes over here, the Ben Ish Chai argues with the Shulchan Aruch. The Ben Ish Chai says you cannot use hot water, scalding hot water, even though Shulchan Aruch said you could. And if you use it, you cannot make a bracha. He goes that far to say you can't make a bracha on it. Mishnah Berurah didn't say that. Mishnah Berurah said Mikra Adin Lach is like a Shulchan Aruch. The Ben Ish Chai is arguing totally with the Shulchan Aruch. And therefore he says, he writes, those elderly men who heat their water for Netilat Yedayim in the winter must make sure that the water is not scalding hot when they use it, the Ben Ish Chai says. And the Ben Ish Chai is against using very, very hot water. Despite this, the halacha, we know the Yalkut Yosef, and that's what's brought down in halacha Berurah also. Chamavaji would say the halacha is not like the Ben Ish Chai when he argues with the Maran Shulchan Aruch. Therefore, the halacha is like the Maran Shulchan Aruch for us. And therefore, you could use boiling hot water and say a bracha. So if you have those elderly men that are burning their water and burning their hands washing it, it wouldn't be permissible for them to say the bracha. Yes, Malkiel.
What about not washing the hands, but the men washing the bodies in the mikveh, the dipping in the mikveh? Is it okay to be hot, same concept, or?
For us, yes. Today,
some
we mentioned
mikvahot
the
are
mikveh,
very
it can
hot.
be hot.
Huh?
I mean, it can be hot. Yeah, it can be hot. Why not?
It's okay, right? It's not like a...
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So we went through hot water. Now, what about using seawater? What would be wrong with seawater? It's a natural.
No?
So what? What?
Rainwater.
Why will the dog drink it? No, not rainwater. Seawater. Because of what? Say it again. Salty. Seawater is very salty. You can't take a cup and put it in the sea and drink it. No one can do that. You're gonna have to.
If it's clear, you can wash it.
But it's not drinkable. So we have to go to the Mishnah. Sechet Yedayim. The Mishnah there says, he says as follows: regarding water that becomes unfit for an animal to drink in a keli, poslim, it's possible for an Netilat Yedayim. So seawater in a keli is going to become possible to use. I mean, Okay. The Rush wants to explain it. It says what? Meluchin. Shena Kelev Yochol L'Lakuk Behem. That the Kelev can't lick it. Can't lick it. Right? L'Cook, similar to lick. Right? Same charge, I assume. V'yesh Imrim. Some say that the water is so clouded that it's nearly pasty mud. But he says, Upirish Kama Iker, and the first parish is correct because we're dealing with clear water, but it's saline. It's too salty, and therefore it's not drinkable. And you put on a keli, a dog won't drink it. So says the Shulchan Aruch, source 18 in the Tzurba, Aruchaim 160, Sif 9, Mayim Meluchem or Osruchem, so salty or foul water or marim or very bitter water, she'ena kelev yachol lishtot mahem, that a dog cannot drink from it. Pesulim l'netilat yedayim will be possible for netilat yedayim. Apple bishik sher l'mei mikvah l'tfila, even though that salty and foul and bitter water would be permissible in the mikvah. For mikvah, you can use it. You just can't use it for netilat yedayim. We're gonna get into that in a few minutes. That's right. You can do tfilat yedayim. You can put your hand into the seawater and wash it that way. We're gonna get into that. What? It is a form of tfilat yedayim. Yeah, why not? The whole reason making tfilat yedayim was a gezerah of tumah, right? You want to say there's tumah on yedayim. How do you take away tumah, real tumah? How do you take away real tumah? Take it away with mikvah. You toivel. You toivel yourself into mikvah when you come out. So they made a gezerah on your hands tumah, so they said you have to wash it, right? So you can wash it with a keli, and you need a keli and a koach kavra, or you can do tefillah with your hands, because tefillah works for any tumah. Yes. So if you're on a boat, right? You're on a boat, and you're on a river. But the Mishnah said, once it's in a keli. Because you could toivel with it. No.
I go with my body inside water to be purified.
There's something else.
No, it's not. Because it's the same thing. Because the whole Tilas Yedayim is a gezerah, right? We said it's a three-way gezerah. It's tumah. They added tumah to us. They did things. So if you can do it for tumah, to go into a mikvah, you can go into a mikvah.
Now. If the dog cannot drink, who cares? I can go like this.
Because it's still kosher litzvila. It's kosher for a mikvah. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Then he says, if they came cloudy due to mud that got mixed to it, if a kelev can drink it, if it's cloudy because it's muddy, if a kelev can drink from it, then you can put it in a vessel and use it, and it's kosher l'mikvah. If it's not, so if it comes to muddy water, it's the same din. Muddy water is the same din. The kelev can drink it, then it's kosher for both. And if it's the dog can't drink it, and the dog is just a test, right? To become drinkable. We're saying at an extreme level, this is still drinkable. Even humans can drink it if they're very, very shot. They have to drink, and the dog can drink it. That's what we're saying, a dog. Okay, fine. So appearance of water changing is that. All right, fine. According to these sources, undrinkable salty seawater is unfit for Netilat Yedayim. But now the Mishnah Berurah and the Yalkut Yosef will tell us two ways to use it. Mayim Meluchim. So if you have very salty water, the Mishnah Berurah says, Mei Hayam, water from the sea. Im hertichu otan. If you boil it up, if you boil up salty water, you'll get rid of the salt, and it'll become able to be drink, and therefore you can drink it. Or you can toivel your hands into it, just like any salty water could be used as a mikvah. Same thing in the Yalkut Yosef. Here he brings in the Hebrew edition. One may not perform a Netilat Yedayim with seawater, as that water is not potable for a dog. not drinkable for a dog. If
So
you have
this is
only seawater, yeah,
so oceans and lakes also, right?
that's
Included.
right.
Everything
Yeah.
is salt.
Same idea. Same thing with the ocean, right? What should he do? Therefore, he should immerse his hand in the sea. He can also immerse his hand in a spring, even if it does not contain 40 sa. Usually, you need a mikvah arbaim sa. You don't need koach kavra when it's not from a keli. That's what I'm telling you now. You need a keli and koach kavra when it's a keli. When you're doing tibul yedayim, you don't need that anymore. You can put it into a mikvah. And not only a mikvah, you can put it into a less than a mikvah if it's a spring. As long as there's enough water in that spring to cover his hands at once.
Close the hole. The drain, close the
No,
fill it up,
no, that's not a spring. A spring is a natural body of water that comes out. Yours is not. If one boy is a seawater well, and then he brings them hertiach et mehayam. You boil up the water. It's also going to be okay. If you're unable to boil the seawater, he's unable to immerse his hands in the sea. Let's say he can't put his hands inside, and he has no other water which to wash. He should wash the seawater and not recite a bracha. He says if you have nothing else to use, then you can take the seawater in a cup. You can't put your hands inside the seawater. Then you can put it in a cup and use it, but you can't make a bracha on it. Let's just take a look in the English edition, page 169. He says, after ocean water is not fit for the mitzvah. It's not fit to drink. One may not fill a container and pour it on his hands. But you're allowed to immerse your hands in the ocean as if it was a mikvah, and you can make the bracha. If you boil ocean water, it becomes okay to drink, then you can use it for Netilat Yedayim. And then you do say the bracha. Let's say you desalinized it. Okay, there's a new process, desalinization. They take water, you put it in a machine, it doesn't boil it, but it pulls out the salt. Same thing, it's like boiling it, right? Because it now becomes able to drinkable. Once it's drinkable, you can use it. Okay. Yeah, so that's the same thing as we said. Okay. So far now we know if you're going on a trip, you're in the ocean, and you don't have water, you can dip your hands into the water. And you make it Yedayim like that. What bracha are you going to end up saying? Let's take a look. Shulchan Aruch brings it down. All right, source 21. Matvil Yadav, someone who dips his hands into the water, right? He does tivul Yadayim. Eno mevarach al tfilat Yadayim. You don't say al tfilat Yadayim. Elo al netilat Yadayim. You're still going to say al netilat Yadayim because the whole gezerah was to do netilat Yadayim. So even though you're doing tfilat Yadayim, you'll still say netilat Yadayim. The mevarach and tfilat Yadayim. V'yeshayim, remember there are those who say this is now the Ramah, right? This is the Ramah. V'yeshayim and the Barachim al tfilat Yadayim. He's arguing with Shulchan Aruch. He says you should say tfilat Yadayim. Oh, al shtifat Yadayim. Shtifat means washing. V'chein ikar. So according to the Ramah, you should not say al netilat Yadayim. Rather, you should say al tfilat Yadayim. So he argues. The Yalkut Yosef says if you're going to dip it in, so he holds like the Shulchan Aruch, no surprises there, right? He holds like the Shulchan Aruch straight, and therefore you would say al netilat Yadayim. The Mishnah Berurah that says he says, from where do you have a tfilat yadayim? What's the bracha? Asher kedishanu, sanctified us, b'mitzvah v'tzivanu, with the mitzvah, and commanded us on what? The Chacham never said, go dip your hands in water. The Chacham said, do al tfilat yadayim. Therefore, how can he say v'tzivanu al tfilat yadayim? There was no mitzvah to do tfilat yadayim. You couldn't do a regular netilah, so you did it through this way. So you're not going to say tfilat yadayim. The command is on the tefillah Because of the mitzvah of Netilah, that's why we're doing the mikvah dipping into, or the ocean dipping into. Therefore, the bracha is not al tvilat yadayim, bracha is al netilat yadayim. The achronim iskimu kedat mechaber levarach al netilat yadayim. And the achronim agree with Rav Yosef Karo and the Shulchan Aruch and say to say al netilat yadayim. Then he adds in a part. The Shulchan Aruch, the Yaakov Yosef does not add this part, but he adds it here. Barakim amayim pesulim netilah barak netfilah. Then mevarach atfilah yadayim. If it's seawater or ocean water that you cannot use it to wash your hands, then you should say atfilah yadayim. So the Mishnah Berurah seems to be saying if you dipped it into water that could technically be put in a cup, then you should still say atfilah yadayim. But if it cannot be technically put in a cup, then you should say atfilah yadayim. Shulchan Aruch did not say that. Yaakov Yosef does not say that. So for us Sfaradim, if we were going to dip our hands into a mikvah or ocean or seawater or anything like that, we're going to say the bracha of al netilat yadayim and not al tfilat yadayim or al shtifat yadayim. Yes, Malkiel.
Dipping the hands in the seawater or ocean, whatever, health-wise, it's okay, medical. There's no like bacteria that could, then we're touching the food and eating it.
There probably is.
I know salt was a lot of bacteria, but on the other side.
As for sanitary, you're right. It's probably not very sanitary.
Not very, okay.
It's probably not very sanitary. So I'm assuming you have Purell with you, right? After COVID, everyone should be walking around with Purell. It's just my thing. I try to have a Purell in the car. I have a Purell by my table. I have a Purell on my desk. I have a Purell on my office desk. Yeah, that's why I'm always Purelling.
So we could dip it and then do the sanitizer, right? We could dip it.
I don't know if you can do it right away.
Al netilat and then the sanitizer and then say the bread.
I'm not sure.
No,
sure.
Okay.
Can you do Purell right after washing your hands before Netilat Yadayim in such a case? I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm not sure. I have to look into that. Okay. Let's see if we can finish up one last piece. I was actually going to do much further. Right. So you could do it. Put Purell on. You're saying. So Rabbi Yosef here says, Malkiel, that you can you can wipe your hands after you're using the ocean water, so it's going to be somewhat clean. Then you grab your food. You're going to wipe it. You have to wipe after you get it wet, right? So if you're wiping it, you're wiping away most of the dirt.
With the wet hand.
Right, you can't say with the wet hand, so it's going to be cleansed somewhat. Right. Okay. Fine. Sounds good. Used water. Okay. It's also a big one. Asaba hem malacha. You did work with the water, or you soaked your bread in the water. You used the water for something. Pesulin. It's possible to use it for Netilat Yadayim. So water that was already used is possible for Netilat Yadayim. It says in Shulchan Aruch, Asav Mayim Malacha. If you did work with the water, if you dip your water into it, afilu not kavin, l'shurok, v'kelizeh, v'nafol l'sheni psulim. Even if you wanted to put your bread into one cup of water and it fell into another cup of water, that other cup of water is possible. If one cooled wine into water, right? You had a hot bottle of water, of wine. You wanted to cool it down. You had a cold bucket of water, and you put the wine into a cold bucket of water. You use that water to cool down the wine. The water is possible. It's used. You can't use used water. That's what the Mishnah said. It's not, I don't know, maybe it's not respectful to use it that way. If you wash kalim with them, psulim, it's also possible. You wash kalim and now you want to use that water over to wash your hands. You can't do that. The kalim were already washed. Oh, chadashim, they were brand new and they were clean. And then you sprinkled water on it. Then you could use that water from the Yedayim because it's not considered used water because it was already clean. Well, the Yaakov Yosef in the Hebrew edition adds a few other thought. He writes, one who soaked vegetables in water so they should not dry out. You're not allowed to use this water. So if you're putting vegetables into water, Can't use that water. Imaniach bakbuk chalav cham b'toich keli im mayim tzunanim. You took a hot bottle of milk and you want to cool it down. You want to make the chalav, you want to make it cool down. You cannot use it for the Yedayim. Or about the other way around. If you cool down wine in water, or mayim b'mayim, or you cool down water in water, because it was considered doing work. But if you put cold water in cold water, so it shouldn't become hot. You don't have to get hot from the day. If you did that in order to keep something cold, something was cold, you put it into more cold water, that's not considered using the water. That water could be used. Soda. You want to keep it cold. It's already cold. You just want to keep it cold. The mime is kosher. Shomer al hasoda. They shouldn't get more hot. And it started off cold. So if you're just keeping it cold, that's not considered using it. But if you're using it to cool it down, that is a problem. If it's hot and you're cooling it down, that is a problem. He talked about taking a hot bottle of milk and putting it into cold water. What about the other way around? A lot of times we take a cold bottle of milk and we put it into hot water. What would you say to that? What? You could use it? Oh, it was used. You're saying it was used. Thinking the same thing. Thinking along the same lines. Like on Shabbos, a lot of times, what do? We have the baby bottle, and you want to give it to the baby, so you take water out of the urn, you put it into a second cup, and then you take the milk, right, and you put it in to the water. The water can't cook anymore; it's already in this cliche. You're just warming it up now. So, what happens in that case? Is that considered water used or not? Someone placed a bottle of wine or beer and took a container of cold water in order to cool beverage. The water is not disqualified. Use water. The beverage is already cool, and someone placed the bottle into water in order to prevent it becoming warm. The water is still fit. Someone heated a baby bottle, then placed it into a container of water in order to cool it down. The water is disqualified for the mitzvah. The bottle is warm, and someone placed it into a warm water so that it should remain warm. The water is still fit for the mitzvah. Okay, he doesn't talk about the other case. But it'll be the same thing. No, he said it both the same time. He said it's hot into cold. He didn't say cold into hot. But it'll be the same thing. Cold to hot be the same thing because you're using the water. You're using the water to either heat it or cool it. The only time it's okay if the water is being to keep it at its temperature, warm for warm, cold for cold, whatever, that's fine. But going from cold to hot or hot to cold, that's considered being used, and that would be problematic. Oh, here, someone filled a hot water bottle for medicinal purposes. Hot water bottle for medicinal purposes. That water cannot be used afterward for Netilat Yedayim. Likewise, if someone boiled eggs on the stove, the water in the pot is disqualified. It's used water. The same thing, the water in home radiators, right? The heaters that use the water can't use it because it was used for something. And that's the way to look at it. If it was used for something, then you can't use it.
One question.
Yeah.
So if I use the water bottle to drink, and then I need water to wash my hands, can I use the same bottle to wash my hands now if I have some water left? Let's say I'm in a car and I have no other water.
So you want You're drinking half of it, and then you're like, oh, I gotta wash my hands.
Yeah, right,
and then use it.
right. I want to eat a bagel sandwich, and now I'm nothing to watch, so I want to watch with the same
Right.
bottle that was used to drink.
I don't think it's called used water, right? Used water. The examples they gave, right? Even the Mishnah's example was sha'asa b'hem malacha. You did something to it, or you dipped your bread into it. Drinking it is drinking. That's what you do with water. You drink water. That's the way you use water. It's regular. It's not using your water for something. I don't think so.
They apply this water bottle.
Yeah.
My macaroni. My eye. Can I after drink this bottle of water?
I've seen. Oh, you drink the water after you use it. I don't know.
No, I use the water, clean water to my macaroni. There's half a bottle to left. No, it's clean water. I didn't use the water inside the bottle is new. The way I learned it, we don't use it already. That's all. But I'm just curious if you're saying it's okay.
Fill in the water. Doesn't I would assume that would be okay because it's not using it for something. Okay, let's see. If a dog or pig has taken a drink from a container of water, no one may use the remaining water for the mitzvah of Netilat Yedayim. If any other animal or bird takes a drink from the container, the remaining water may be used for Netilat Yedayim. It's only if a dog or pig drinks from it, you can't use it. Good question. Ben Shai says cats, dogs, and pigs. Since any of these animals drink from a container, the water becomes sewage in the eyes of people. People don't use it anymore. I know a dog or pig or a cat drink from it, I'm not going to use it. However, if someone mistakenly did use it, the Moran rule that he has fulfilled his obligation and may eat his bread. If some other animal or bird uses the water, it's not disqualified.
If I'm going on a trip on the road and I have a bag of ice full in my cooler,
Yeah.
and then I got to lunchtime, I found water. It was used to cool down the food.
Okay. Did it take? No. So now think. Wait. Think. Did he use to make hot cold, or it kept it cold? So then you didn't use it because it's only used if you went from hot to cold or cold to hot. Here, you were just trying to keep it cool. As such, you didn't use it. It's not considered used, right? I would assume so. That would be. Okay. Okay. Fine. Right. Okay, so he brought down about drinking animals. He doesn't bring down about a human drinking. Anybody have any input? Anybody know? From what I'm seeing, I don't think it's considered that you're using it for malacha. What does Shulchan Aruch say? What does Shulchan Aruch say? So bring Shulchan Aruch 160.
160?
Yeah. Bring the halacha barah. You bring the Shulchan Aruch on the top. Halacha barah, I think it's chet. One on bottom. Right there, halacha barah, yeah, chet, the one that's sticking out. Oh, are we out of time? No, we still have this. Okay, 160. Let's see. There we go. Okay, so that's Sif Aleph.
The water was used for drinking.
Yeah. Niktam Mitzad Yad L'Chazor Sim Mutal Ashar. Yad L'Kamel. That's Gimel. Okay, Daled. Shavach Maim Yadado Achat, Shav Shavach Regel, also on the Shavach Machana Shayab, that's already next. Shavach Yadado Achat. Maim Maim Shayim Term, Maim Shayim. Lo Havim Achmedia. Hilkach Hashayfach. This is right. The figure not to the tar. Ein lo acher yachos like Rashi. Vayasha. Revias ke'echad ein tzarich mayim shay. Doesn't seem to have it. Okay. All right. We'll leave it as a tzarich. Leave it as a tzarich. Homework. I feel based on what we were learning that it says if you use it for something, or you dip your bread into it, that would be a problem. Because now you're using it to soften your bread. Drinking it is drinking it. It's what you do with water. I'm not sure. All right, leave it at tzarich. We're gonna have to look into it. It's a good question, Malkia. Very good question. I need to write it down. By the way, last week's question about the folding cup. So we concluded that you could use a folding cup. In fact, they even sell a folding cup, especially for Netilat Yedayim. And they have a folding Netilat Yedayim traveling cup. So it is permissible. It is considered a keli, and that it would be okay. So that's, you reminded me we had last week's question. So that's last week's answer. We'll have to figure out this one, Be'ez Hashem. Okay. Okay, we'll leave it here, I think. We'll leave it over here because I don't want to start the next one. The next one is a whole inning in itself. We'll stop it here for this week. Okay, Be'ez Hashem, Al-Kiel, we'll get back to you on that.
Thank you very much. Shavua Tov.
Let me close the thing.